Every new year you set the same goal. Every couple of months you try again. There's something there pushing you to change. But you keep trying, you keep failing.
Don't be upset by the results you didn't achieve with the work that you didn't do. Like, low blow, but it's true, isn't it? Lots of people will go into New Year and say, hey, I want to lose 30 pounds. Some will achieve it and some will not.
Over 35% of adults set New Year's resolutions. Only 9% keep their resolutions. Nearly a quarter of people quit within the first week. Are you actually ready for change? We want to make sure that you're going to set some goals you're actually going to achieve. We've also even made a free downloadable workbook for you, applying all the science of how to set the most effective goals. It doesn't need to be January the 1st. Yep. It doesn't need to be a Monday.
Yeah, so let's start with why your goals suck and never come to fruition.
Before you start listening to today's episode, you might want to just go and download the free PDF that we've put together to help you set the best goals for 2025. If you just check out the description of this episode, you'll see the link and you can download it for free.
Hi, I'm Jaymie.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is the Body Smart Podcast.
We are women's weight loss experts on a mission to empower you to feel permanently in control of your weight and your health. And this time of year tends to be the time of year that people decide to take the bull by the horns and get that going. It seems like a logical place to start. It's a new year, and you might be listening to this because you're actually considering making a change to your health or setting a weight loss goal. So definitely, this episode is going to be really helpful for you to actually make it happen this year. Because how many years have you set the same goal or a variation of this goal only to end up in the exact same place a year later? Still wishing you could have lost 20 pounds in the last year. Still thinking I've got to set a weight loss goal this year again. And actually, you're not alone. So
Not at all.
It's we were looking at the stats of this, and over 35% of adults set New Year's resolutions, but only 9% actually keep their resolutions. It's quite low.
It's quite low. Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with just maybe setting goals that aren't realistic, which nothing wrong with having like really ambitious goals, but I think sometimes the goals are so ambitious that it's just like, oh, what's the point? Or you get like 1 or 2 weeks into January and you're like, not really making any progress here. So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, the amount that quit in the first week is quite high. It's like nearly a quarter of people quit within the first week.
Wow. Yeah.
That's not very long.
That's not very long at all, yeah.
Particularly with something like weight loss, which we all know is not a 1 week and done job. And actually, most people's New Year's resolutions, there was a study by Forbes that I was looking at. They surveyed a load of people, and it was big picture things. So it was like lose weight, improve my health, improve my finances, work on my mental health, like big picture things that are going to change your life for the better. But because of that, they require a big commitment and actually a bit more strategic planning. Yeah,
because a lot of those things, like let's say you're trying to improve your finances, you can't just improve finances in like a day or a week or even a month. It's about putting the habits and systems in place so that over time you compoundingly get in a financially better place, either the way you budget your money or the way you're investing your money or whatever it is. Like it takes months and years for that compounding effect to really take effect.
I think it's a really good one to compare in terms of timescales, because you wouldn't set yourself a financial goal for 2025 and expect to achieve it by the end of January. Unless it was just like tidy up all the direct debits that I don't use, little things. But if you have like a savings goal, you wouldn't expect to achieve it in the first month.
No, not at all.
So why do we do it when it comes to our health?
I don't know, but like maybe you would set a finance goal and be like, hey, the goal is to save this percentage of my wages by the end of each month. So you could be like, okay, by month 1, I've saved a percentage and done this. But if you actually apply that same mindset to weight loss, you'd be like, oh, I'm looking to lose, 50 pounds this year or 30 pounds this year. And you could go, okay, what's that per month? That's like £2.5 a month. It's like, okay, but most people get to the end of January and their expectation is that I should have lost £10, not 2.5, even though you set the goal out to lose 30 pounds in a year. So it is weird. Like it seems that we're more rational and reasonable about like finances and money and just other things in life. But when it comes to like weight loss, it's like right here, right now. Got to have like the big extreme moments. Got to, do 7 workouts a week and eat no chocolate and eat 1,000 calories.
Yeah. So that is the entire purpose of today's episode. We want to make sure that you're going to set some goals you're actually going to achieve this year, given a little bit of an inkling of some of those tips. But we've also even made a free downloadable workbook for you to follow along with the episode and make sure it actually happens. It's going to be applying all the science of how to set the most effective goals and how to take action so that you can actually reach them.
Yeah, so let's start with why your goals suck and never come to fruition. So first, we've got a goal without a deadline equals fantasy. A goal plus a deadline equals objective. A goal plus a deadline plus a plan equals intention. And then a goal plus a deadline plus a plan plus consistent action equals success.
So when it comes to goal setting, most people set a goal, maybe set a timeline. But actually, if we think about what the examples we were just sharing with weight loss, we've had so many clients come to us and say, oh, I just want to lose 30 pounds. There's not a timeline in their head. They just want it, and they want it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And so the first step is setting yourself your goal that's realistic, which we'll cover in a minute, and then also a timeline that's realistic. So that's going to set it into more of a likely thing to happen. But then none of that's going to happen without having a very solid plan. And then the other element is, like you said, consistent action. So you've got the plan. How do you make sure you do the action and follow the plan? So we're also going to give you the insight tips on how to do that. But before we get going on all those practical things, we've got to cover the more fluffy stuff, which I know it can feel like, oh, it's all a bit woo-woo, but getting clear on why you want to set this goal also makes it way more likely that you're going to do it and follow through. And there's lots of different ways to go into like finding your why, or like digging deep to find out what's the real driver for change when it comes to goals. But one of the things I want to explore today, and we've put a list to help you in that free downloadable workbook, is to try and tie your goal to your life values or like your personal core values. Because there's lots of things that people can say, oh, I want to lose weight because I want to be healthier, because I want to be here for my kids or whatever. That can really work for some people, but actually for a lot of people, trying it into like the way you live your life every single day and the things that are like integral to you as a person can also be really powerful. And some people don't have that clarity on the more objective whys, but they do feel like, yeah, I'm this kind of person, and doing this goal would tie into like me showing up as my true self. So it's kind of a different angle on it that people might not have considered before.
Yeah, and I think if you've never even got clear on like what your own values are, this is like a great place to start, because it does create a little bit of a framework of, you know, sometimes you get those feelings like, I don't really want to do that. Yeah, like it's often because it actually feels not in alignment with your values, but like maybe you say yes because you're a people pleaser, or maybe you say yes because, well, why not? But like if you actually get super clear on your values, it does create like a good framework to what you should say yes to and what you should say no to. And the more you keep doing that, the more in alignment you feel with yourself on a daily basis.
And what you say no to is equally important, like you just touched on there, because it is anything you say yes to means you're having to say no to other stuff. And so if you're constantly doing things that don't align with your values, it potentially means that you're saying no to stuff that really would make you happy and really matters to you. I actually found this really hard to do, to pick out like my top values. Do you have yours clear in your head?
No, it's probably the answer. I know for me, like being useful is like a huge value of mine. Like I know on days where I feel useless is probably the days I feel the worst. I like to get up and take action with the day. Like if I were to just get up and do nothing, have like a lazy day or a lie-in day, I just often feel horrible for it. Like, and I end up having to do overcompensate in terms of being useful to feel better. So I like to get up and be useful and be proactive. And that's, I've tried not doing that, and I've tried to have like more downtime and everything else. But like I can still have that just in the latter part of the day. But often for me, like a big part is just getting up and being useful, whatever that looks like, whether that's with family, friends, business, work, even being useful around the house, you know, whatever else it is. That's like it's definitely something that's a core value of mine that I've realized that I didn't think was, but then any time I'm not in alignment with that, I feel a little bit out of sorts.
That's a really good way to help someone figure out what theirs might be, actually, because you might not know what it is, but you know what it's not. Like, you know what the opposite is, like what doesn't feel good.
Well, that's a great way of figuring things out, isn't it? Oh my God, what's the who was it who come up with it? It's inverted thinking. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Inverted thinking. And it's basically like we've talked about this many times on the podcast. We're so much more drawn to negativity than we are to positivity. So when you go to someone, hey, what do you want? People are like, I don't know. What do you mean? What do I want, Jay? Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want your life? Okay, what do you like? What do you want your life not to be? Like, if you could have a perfect day, what would not be in it? And it's so much easier to go, well, I wouldn't have this in it. I wouldn't deal with that person. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? And you can start to really list out all the things that you wouldn't. And often a really good framework for that is to just look at, okay, what's the opposite? And that's what I found as like a really helpful exercise. I find most of us, our brains are drawn more towards negativity. So if you focus more on what I don't want, it helps you realize what you do want.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think it's important to mention that your values aren't fixed. Like, what's the priority in your life at any given time? So for me, I would say it's probably at this particular time in my life, it's like connection, peace, and strength would probably be my 3. Whereas at other points in my life, it might have been more like growth and ambition and different things. Yeah. But for this season, for me, it's like, let's just chill. And that's okay as well. And I think it's really important that you recognize it can change, but also it needs to be what you actually want, not what you think you should write down or what you think other people are expecting of you.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like for me, for a long time, it was ambition, but I was like, because everyone thinks I should be ambitious. Whereas I actually didn't make me as happy as working on things that really fed into connection.
Yeah.
And that can still lead to growth and like changing your career and all that kind of stuff. But if you're coming from the right angle.
Yeah.
And that's why this is such a powerful exercise. So before we even start setting any goals, have a look at the download. You can also just look on Google for like a list of life values if you like, and just try and get some clarity on like 3 to 5 life values that are really important to you right now. And then we'll work on like, how can you tie in the goal that you're going to set to bringing you closer to those values?
Yeah. I think if you try this as well, don't feel like it needs to be perfect first time. So if you circle like 3 to 5 values, and when you try and go and act in a way that's in accordance with one of those values, but it still feels a bit off, don't be afraid to just go back and be like, oh, that actually maybe isn't as important to me as I thought it was. And you can change and switch. As you said, it changes in seasons, but also like don't expect to get this right maybe first time.
Yeah. It's a nice conversation to have with your partner if you've got one, or even your kids if they're old enough, to just be like, bounce ideas off, because other people see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And so, for example, you being useful, I would say you're a very like serving person. Like you always go out of your way to make sure everyone around you is good and okay. So other people might have seen that in you before you did, for example.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So if you're struggling with it, ask somebody close to you, a partner, a parent, a friend. They might just be like, well, obviously it's this, and this. I'll give you a bit of insight. So that's one way we can look at it, and making sure that you're going to set the goals that really connect with what makes you tick as a person. That means you are more likely to show up and do them. The other thing that makes it more likely that you're going to show up and do them is you're not fighting lots of different priorities, and this goal that you've set actually can't really fight against some of those other priorities. So when we looked at that survey from Forbes, 45% of people set 3 or more resolutions. And actually, if you think about how much headspace all of us have got amongst keeping down a job, looking after whoever we look after, just trying to stay alive. You're also trying to like improve your health, improve your mental health, and improve your finances. Is it any wonder that you can't achieve all 3 of them? So start to be really realistic about like, what is the one thing that you can channel all your attention on? Don't have all these competing priorities and goals, because there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much headspace you've got. The most common resolution for 2024 was fitness, which was really interesting. It was not lose weight.
That is interesting, yeah.
Which I loved, because even if you did want to lose weight, it would naturally probably come easier if you'd already implemented
fitness. It's such a catalyst, yeah. I think anytime you like prioritize fitness, it's like, you say you go to the gym first thing in the morning, you go and do a workout class, you walk out, you feel great. Then because you feel great, you're like, I want to keep feeling great. You're like, well, if I've done a workout class this morning, of course I'm not going to have a burger for lunch or eat something really unhealthy. I'm going to make a healthier choice. And it acts as such a catalyst to making healthier choices and feeling better.
Yeah. So my tip there would be, there are maybe 3 things that you want to work on. Is there any underlying theme that actually would kind of serve 1 or 2 of them in one stone? So, you could reframe it as like, I'm going to work on my fitness rather than losing weight, for example, might tick 2 of your goals without you feeling like they're against each other. So if you've got more than one, you either need to prioritize or you need to see a way where you can marry them up and they actually, the same actions are required to achieve similar outcomes. And then the other thing is not just other goals that you're setting, but other commitments in your life. So you've got to be realistic about, like, if you're setting a goal and a timeline, has that actually taken into consideration your commitments, your responsibilities? Otherwise, you're just going to constantly feel like you're swimming upstream and it's a battle and it's inevitable that you're going to fail. Not that it is inevitable, but it's going to feel like it's inevitable.
For sure.
So you either need to look at like your timescale, your size of your goal, or your other commitments. And this is a good time of year to do it because you're sitting down and reflecting.
Yeah, it's definitely a time I spend each year where I really like look at like personal goals for the year ahead and also like business goals. And I used to be one of those like people like wanted to do it like one and done. Like I'd get it in like one session, I'd write it all down and figure it all out. But actually like something that you're gonna, be intentional about for the next year requires a little bit of thought. And, for me it would be, I'd go for a walk and not take my phone or headphones and just think about like the goals that I've maybe already preset out and then give them more thought. And I would do it over a couple of days or even a week sometimes, or in like the latter part of like the last 2 weeks of the year. And that would just give me like real like clarity of mind on like what these goals are, why they're really important to me, and like, the intentionality about them going into. Because if you just pick a goal, like sometimes you can just like, anyone ever had a drink and you talk to your friend about starting a business or doing something amazing? It's like, because you're all like, the energy's there, the mood, the environment, it sounds like a great idea. But like the next day you wake up and like, that's never going to happen. So I think just like really giving your goals, if you're setting them out for 2025, some thought, some intentionality, why you want to achieve them, and then the practicality behind them is so important, because I believe so many people do go into goal, like either the goals are too big for 1 year, so then you're instantly setting yourself up for failure, or the timelines in which you want to achieve those goals are just completely out. And again, you're not managing your own expectations, which again is setting yourself up for not succeeding, which the whole thing we want from this podcast is for you guys to succeed with your goal setting.
Yep. And I think sitting with them is a really great idea, letting your subconscious mind figure out the practicalities over a couple of days, because we often are aware of like when we're being unrealistic. But if you're being like a bull in a china shop and you're setting it and you're being really driven, which is great, you can conveniently ignore those things and set yourself up for failure. Yeah,
so like if you went to the year and was like, hey, I'm going to lose 30 pounds this year, and you went for a 1 hour walk and all you done was thought about what is my life going to have to look like over the next 12 months to lose that 30 pounds, and that's all your mind is consumed by, and you're like, right, how am I going to have to eat? How's that going to affect my work, my job, my kid? Like, and you just start asking yourself all those questions. You're already like building the framework and formula and expectation management around what that looks like. Oh, it's 30 pounds. That's 2.5 pounds a month. Okay, if I lose more than that, it could be a little bit faster. You can just start to formulate all that out, and then that one goal, can have multiple mini goals underneath it and multiple actions, and it just allows you. It just gives you more like clarity of mind. And I think I'd say most people haven't spent enough time thinking about their goals with intentionality or clarity to really set themselves up for success going into the year.
And actually, most people don't spend enough time alone to think, full stop.
Yeah.
So I think that's really great advice. Like, do this exercise and go for a walk, and then maybe revisit it after a night's sleep as well, because your brain can kind of process stuff. Yeah. You mentioned then about like, what will my life have to look like? And that was actually my next point, was we often focus on what do we want to achieve? Like, what is that big headline goal? Like, what are we aiming for? But we don't necessarily focus on what kind of trade-offs am I willing to accept? Because a lot of big goals require some kind of change to your status quo. Well, I would say nearly all of them will, otherwise you'd have it already. Yeah. So whether it is like growing a business or losing weight or learning a new skill, like there is going to be some kind of trade-off in time, effort, whatever.
Yeah. You've heard that saying, haven't you? Don't be upset by the results you didn't achieve with the work that you didn't do. And that's real like a like low blow, but it's true, isn't it? Like some people are like really upset because he set these high intentionality goals. It's the we do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And a lot of people have these high intentional goals. Like that's like lots of people will go into the new year and say, hey, I want to lose 30 pounds. Some will achieve it and some will not. The ones that achieve it are the ones that have the systems in place that allow them to elicit the goal that they're looking for. They both had the same goals. It's the systems and the habits that change that allow them to make that happen.
And it's so two things can affect that is the time scale and the actual size of the outcome you're trying to achieve. Because actually, if you said, I want to achieve 30 pounds over the course of a year, that actually isn't that extreme at all. No. Like you would have to make pretty minimal changes for most people to achieve that, which would be great. But if you said, I want to achieve 30 pounds in 2 months, it's a very different conversation.
Yeah.
Like it could be done, but do you want to accept that lifestyle and those trade-offs? Most people, in reality, the answer is no. So it's not necessarily that your goal isn't right, but maybe your time scale is not right for that goal.
I could even give you I could even actually tell you like what 30 pounds in 12 months looks like. It could be a couple of thousand extra steps a day, not much. Slightly better food choices. So you're managing calorie control a little bit. Exercising would be great, just a few couple of times a week. It's pretty much it, just being intentional. You could lose 30 pounds in a year. 30 pounds in 2 months would be massive calorie restriction, probably like 15 to 20,000 steps a day, which is a huge time commitment. Probably exercising 5-6 days a week, or at least 7 days a week, and where there's some sort of cardio, so your rest day is cardio. And just being hungry, like probably pretty miserable for 2 months straight. And you could
no off days,
no alcohol. Like probably everyone's going to dislike you because you're just you know what I mean? Like it can be done. Like I'm not going to say that it can't be done. It can be done. And then you've probably also got a super high likelihood that you will rebound after that, because you'll go, that was the hardest 2 months of my life. And you'll probably just go back to some old habits and behaviors. So like, even though there can be the appeal to do it, I think that's the thing. Sometimes you go, I want to lose this much weight in this much time. But if you actually realize the level of work that it would take and sacrifice, you'd probably either say, one, that's not practical, that's not realistic, or I just don't want to do that. So I think extending that time, that horizon and that timeline sometimes, and understanding that like you can still achieve that goals, it's just going to take longer. And that's something, unfortunately, myself included, we're all lacking is patience. It's like most people's goals can just be when most people's frustrations with the goals can just be like, be patient, keep going.
Yeah.
Be patient, keep going. And it just sometimes, that's the hardest thing to hear sometimes, but it does. Like Rome wasn't built in a night, and big goals that you're looking to achieve in 2025 are not going to happen in a few days or a few weeks. And
it's worth saying that everybody's tolerance is different. So for some people, if they went through that like exercise of what trade-offs am I willing to accept, they might settle on like 4 months and be happy with that. Some people might say, no, I want the full year. And that's why it's really important to go through the exercise yourself and be like, what lifestyle do I want and how do I want to go about achieving this? And then adjust your goal if you need to, or the timescale. And then the final one in terms of like how you set the goal itself is how you word your goal and your actions really matters. So there was a really interesting study that I found, which was action-oriented goals were way more likely to succeed than avoidance-oriented goals. So if you think about like the goal of eating more fruit versus cutting out sugar, actually, if you ate more fruit, you'd probably naturally eat less chocolate because you're filling your plate with fruit. Yeah. You'd probably achieve a similar outcome. You would be healthier, etc. But you would be about 15% more likely to achieve your goal. Yeah. It's a great way of looking at it, because especially like the diet industry is kind of promoted like less, restrict. And if you start saying to someone like, hey, how can we eat more fruits and vegetables? How can we get, drink more water? How can we have more whole foods? More protein. More fiber. Yeah. And so now all of a sudden you're looking at like, how can I get more of this food on my plate in my belly? How can I just have more of this? It's a very different mindset to go on like, how can I just eat as little as possible so I feel like I'm eating bloody rabbit food to try and lose weight? It's a completely different mindset. And then you often just find it's like, oh, I'm eating these foods and there's not as many calories in them and I'm more satiated, and then I'm actually eating less and losing weight. It's, it has like a real positive feedback loop. Yeah. So once you've got your goal clear, you've got your timeline clear, have a think about like how you're going to go about that, which leads us into your goals and your systems, which you've mentioned already. Because I think a lot of people think about the goal, they vaguely know the blueprint of how you might get there, but they don't like solidify. No, this is a bulletproof plan to get me from A to B. And actually that is the key to success, knowing those actions. So if you think about, let's say, losing weight, you want to lose weight, you've got a set number in your head, that is your goal. Let's say meal prep and your daily walks and your workout schedule, that is your system to get you to your goal. And so being really clear on what those things need to be, when you're going to do them, and what success looks like for each of those things is so important.
Yeah. So like example is like, if you're going to do meal prep, it's like, okay, well, when am I doing the food shop to do the meal prep? What day and time am I booking in each week into my calendar to then make the food? You know, if I'm doing 3 workouts a week, what days am I doing them on? And if something happens to change, how am I going to make sure that that is a non-negotiable and doesn't get missed? Those steps that I'm doing, well, I only do 4,000 steps right now. Okay, so if anyone doesn't know, around 1,000 steps is about 10 minutes. So you're like, oh, when am I going to get an extra 40 minutes? But sometimes you can just be like, right, well, on my day to day, are the things that I could change that could make me walk a little bit more? Could I go for a walk at lunch? Could I get a treadmill from a desk? Or could I get a standing desk and a treadmill? And then when I have meetings, walk on the treadmill. Oh, I've got a 60-minute meeting. There's 6,000 steps. You know, it's just like, there's loads of little ways where you can look at your goals and then start to create systems and be like, oh, so actually I haven't got to try and get an extra 40 minutes because I can walk for 40 minutes on a meeting every day. Okay, well, I've just hit my step goal. Cool, okay. I can get the shop that I do online and I can save it and just pre-order it every Friday. Okay, well, that's coming. Okay, so now I've just got to make time to meal prep on a Sunday. Oh, I'll get it done first thing, so it's done for the week. There's just like loads. You can have these conversations and with yourself and start to figure out what the plan looks like. And I think a weekend is best, or carving out some time of an evening when you've got time to methodically think and lay it out. But that, like, taking all that, thinking about all those decisions to make and then putting a plan in place really does set you up for success. You're going into the week with so much more intentionality.
If you didn't know, I am a weight loss coach, but I've also lost over 50 pounds myself, so I do know how hard this journey can be. Jaymie and I built the Body Smart method to cut through all the BS out there and bring together the latest weight loss science to fast track your weight loss. None of the frustrating trial and error that I battled with myself. Over 4,000 women have lost 15 to 60 pounds within 6 months with us, whilst also gaining healthy habits, skills, and knowledge, which mean they'll never have to diet again. Now, we know that you have thrown hundreds, if not thousands of dollars at this before and been disappointed endless times. So at Body Smart, we are so confident that you'll get results with our method. We have a full money back guarantee. To apply to work with one of our expert one-on-one coaches, go to bodysmartfitness.com.
I always look at workouts. I always say to clients, say you're doing 3. I look at it like there's a fruit bowl. There's 3 pieces of fruit in the bowl. You gotta, whatever fruit, it doesn't matter. That bowl has to be empty by the end of the week. So I don't care if you do your workouts Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. It doesn't matter. The bowl just has to be empty. And that's the commitment you have to make to yourself, is the bowl's empty every week, because it's going to reset. Now, going in with a plan is great. You're going to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Boss keeps you late on Wednesday, right? That's gone out the window. Friday comes around. The kids need picking up from school because something happened at school. That went out the window. You're getting that workout on Saturday, Sunday. Like, you know, come whatever happens, like, you are getting that workout. And that's the mindset that you have to go in. I mean, if you didn't really like doing the workout Saturday, Sunday and had to get up early on the weekend, which you didn't want to do, you're like, right, what's my plan B for when that happens next? And you go, okay, next time we'll do a home workout for 30 minutes when I get home. You know, and you start to create structure and resilience and non-negotiables, and it just keeps paving the way to success.
Yeah, and I know you just said there about, like, I promise it will make it more likely to happen. It is literally like 2 to 3 times more likely to happen if you take that time to properly plan. So the specific name for doing this is called an implementation intention. So it's a very fancy way of saying plan.
Look at me there with my implementation plan.
But literally getting that specific of, during the next week, I will do 20 minutes of exercise on this day, at this time, in this place. it gets your brain then takes that, and it's almost like half the effort of doing it is like convincing your brain you're going to do it.
Yep.
And if you've already given it the visualization tools of like, where is it going to be? When is it going to be? What will it look like? When it gets to that time in that day, your brain's not as likely to fight you because you've already gone there. You've already done the foundations. So sitting down, like you said, taking the time to literally write out that level of detail of your plan is so powerful.
Do you, like just personally, do you plan your weeks out now when it comes to like health, fitness, work? Like what do your weeks look like?
Good question. I don't, but I have a routine that's quite reliable.
Quite rigid.
Yeah. So like, for example, Friday mornings, I always go to Pilates at 6:30 because that's booked, that's happening. So that's one thing that's done. I know I always will do 2 other workouts. They're a bit more fluid, but I know Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I've got 2 hours before I start work after I drop my child at daycare. So it will happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday, but everything else in my life, admin, has to happen on those days as well. So it might be like, I've got a doctor's appointment on one day, so it can't be a Monday that week. So then it's a Tuesday that week. But it's going to be in those time slots.
So you've already kind of you've got the days and times that you know it will happen. And if you had appointments on those other days, then that kind of forces...
I just move them around.
You just move it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a big jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the same for me. Like I will look at my calendar on Sunday and I've got, like I have a routine of like what everything looks like. But if for whatever reason I've got to take earlier calls or earlier meetings or whatever else, then it's like, okay, now I'm just, again, moving the jigsaw around the Google Calendar to kind of make it all fit. And then even with food is we just use HelloFresh for evenings. But I have like pretty much like the same breakfast like most days. And then like lunches, we kind of just have the same. We'll switch it out every other week. But that kind of hits my protein goal, kind of hits my calorie goal, and is pretty consistent and fluid. So like when I go into my week, I'm like, I know when I'm working out, the food is kind of already taken care of as well. And it actually just allows you to go a little bit into autopilot. Like all the decisions that you need to make can be focused on work, family, life.
And I know we talk about this quite a bit because you have HelloFresh and I have Gusto, which is like the same kind of concept. It literally does that thinking for you because you spend, 10 minutes a week having to food prep and, well, not make the food, but like plan and choose the meals. I don't have to do a grocery shop. Like it just turns up. It is honestly a life changer. I tried to go back to like getting my recipe books out and just doing an actual supermarket shop.
Yeah.
I got as far as choosing 2 recipes. I was like, give me the Gusto app back. I can't deal with this. Like having to compute, like, have I got the ingredients in the cupboard or do I need to buy them and how much of each thing do I need?
And there's no waste. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if there are workarounds like that mean my planning is done in 10 minutes, same as you, for the whole week, because that's my dinners. And then the next day I have it for my lunch for a leftover. Yeah. Why would you not? And it's still cooking from scratch. It's still like you can filter by calories, you can filter by protein, you know. So
and the same thing happens, by the way, like I'll go into the week sometimes and have this great plan. And most of the time now I'll be able to stick to that to an extent because I've thought about problems that could possibly pop up. But sometimes shit does hit the fan. And then I just basically go, well, that was a shit day. And I'm a lot more at peace with those days now. But then I'll often just go, okay, what needs to change now for the rest of the week? And I'll just like move things back around and that's it. Like I try not to be too emotional about it. Like it is what it is. It's life. You'll have good days and bad days. But like I've got these like non-negotiables and values that I want to stick with. And it's like, because they are important to me, I'm going to spend that extra 10 minutes at the end of the day to now move things around for the rest of the week to make sure that I still don't miss.
Yeah. So plan.
Yes.
And we've talked about this a little bit as well, but setting up your environment to make it easy. So whether that is having a meal delivery service, whether it's having your Google Calendar, like all scheduled out with repeating appointments, and then you just drag and drop things, whether it's setting out your clothes for the gym for the week, making sure they're all clean, I actually went through a stage of putting the tops with a pair of pants, with the trousers, with a pair of socks, instead of having the socks in the sock drawer and the pants. And when my life was just so busy, that made it easier for me on the day to just be able to grab that whole stash ready to go. So little things like that can make a really big difference. And just things like having healthy options in easy reach and less healthy options out of the house makes it easier. So having a bit of a audit of your household and being like, right, this is my goal. What's going to help me? What's going to hinder me? Let's just have like an afternoon where we just sort the environment out is really helpful.
Yeah. And sometimes it does mean doing a bit of a clear out, especially in the kitchen. And that can take a little bit of getting used to. But I typically find like about 2 weeks and it feels a little bit more normal. I do get, and I'm sure you've had this with clients as well, but I need to have all this like junk food in because the kids want it. And then that makes it more difficult for you. And it's like, well, you are buying the food and then the kids are having that food as well. And most of the parents, if not all the parents I've spoken to, also want their kids to have healthy habits and healthy behaviors. So them starting to change their eating habits and behaviors too is going to be beneficial for them. And again, I think it's just like, I kind of see this, like, this is a bit funny, but it's like a bit more personal. Like Steph they'll say there'll be something in the house that like, I'm like, why is that there? Or why something's moved? Or I don't like something. Or I like something the way it is, but she wants to change it and she moves it and I don't even notice. And then I'll notice like 3 months later and she's like, you obviously don't care because it's not even been there for 3 months. So there's just these like small little changes that happen, but you can just look at that like, yeah, like if you just come home one day and all the chocolate bars are gone out the cupboard, the kids are going to be like, what the hell's going on, mum? Or, you know, what the hell's going on, dad? And they can freak out about that. But if you just start swapping a couple of things out and making healthier choices over time, they'll just expect that that's what's in the cupboard. And so you can make those changes and you just got to kind of look, you've got to be a little bit more strategical sometimes. And this is why, again, laying out those goals over the next year can be like, because if you just come January 1st, all the chocolate's gone, that's a big change for you. It's a big change for your family, big change for your kids. They're not going to like it. But if you just start to buy less and then buy, I don't know, like granola bars and then, you know, some like high fiber bars and then more fruit. And then over time, it just changes. Everyone just kind of gets used to it.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say with that is kids are, when they're younger at least, they're so malleable dependent on what you say. You are in charge. Like they can act like they're in charge and they can kick off big time. But most of the time, that's like got a couple of hours or a couple of days worth of runtime. You as an adult have more like of a long-term vision than 3 days of tantrums. So it is a bit about like choosing your hard. And if you want them to have a healthier life, yeah, you might have 3 days of tantrums, but actually you don't have a child who's growing up eating chocolate every single day and thinking that's normal.
Yeah.
So it isn't easy in the moment. And I get it. Like it is sometimes tempting to just choose the moment right now to be calmer and easier. But when you're thinking this big picture and you're setting your goals, think about your values for your life and your bigger picture family as well, and try and tie it into that as well.
We can maybe just cut this, but is it offensive to say monkey see, monkey do? No. It's not. Definitely. No?
I think if you were saying certain demographics should do that, then yes, but no.
Okay, well, we can just cut that, please, Jess. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it is like monkey see, monkey do with kids as well, is that like, if they just see you eating chocolate all the time and chocolate bars all the time and all these type of foods that you've got in your house, then they just think that that's normal, that's what mum does, that's what dad does. If they start seeing you eat more fruit, more nuts, different types of snacks, they'll be like, oh, that's what mum and dad do. They look up to you. You know what I mean? You're the leader of the household. So again, they're starting to make those changes and they just see you having that. It doesn't mean that they're still not going to ask for the chocolate and the ice cream and everything else that it comes with. But if you start making those changes, you are leading by example and it will start to change their behaviors as well. Yeah,
and you can also hype up, like, if you would normally only buy, say, apples and bananas and satsumas, like that's a very bog standard fruit bowl in the UK. If you were making these changes, you're like, yeah, but look, I've got a whole watermelon this week and I've got
pineapple.
Yeah, pineapple, or look, I've got this dried mango, and it's like a bit of a novelty and it's a bit of a treat. Actually, it diverts the attention a bit, but it's like something that's novel and a treat, but you've guided them to be a healthier one.
And you can also, it's like just the way you said that as well. So even like, oh, you know, we've got some pineapple here. Do you want some? Oh my God, it's so delicious. You know, like just even saying that to your kids, like if you're just like, oh yeah, we've got some fruit here.
Yeah.
Just even the tonality in your voice, it's, I mean, you probably heard the same before, like life is sales, which it is to an extent, but like you are like, you with your kids and stuff, like you do need to slowly change the environment, but then you also need to like be a little bit more intentional about selling them like fruit's really good for you, it's really tasty, and they'll get bought in. Of course they will.
Yeah, like literally my child eats peppers like apples. And my mum was around the other day and she was like, what's he doing? I was like, well, he just thinks it's a snack, and it is. So yeah. But it's only because of what we've taught him, and like my parents had never taught us that because she thinks it's weird, but you know, it's one of those things where you create that reality for them. No one's told him that having a pepper for a snack is weird, so why would he think it's weird?
I think I remember the first time I seen someone do that like 5 years ago, and I was like, what the hell? Like I was like genuinely like, what the hell is that person doing? They're really nice to bite. They're like crispy, they're really like satisfying.
Okay, so goals and systems we've covered. So that's like getting clear on what you want to achieve, the timeline, how you're going to get there. And then we want to talk about like, are you actually ready for change? Because it's all very well having the best plan in the world and the best laid out like step by step how you're going to get there. But if you're not actually ready mentally, it's just still not going to happen.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that make people ready to change, and I wanted to go through them kind of step by step to look at like, ask some questions to yourself, and then how can you tap into it, or how can you work on it if you feel maybe you're not there. So the first one is, why do people change? The first one is when they've got enough pain or they've got enough hurt that's like pushing them. And we've talked about this a lot. Like, there are positive reasons to change, like that draw you towards change, but more often than not, it's something that's pushing you towards change. And so for a lot of people, especially with weight loss, there is a deep underlying reason why, but we don't maybe go deep enough. We kind of like, we skirt around it a little bit. We know we want to change it, but we don't like go there, really visit that pain.
Yeah.
But that can be helpful.
It can be, yeah. I actually need to cough, sorry. We are there. Okay, pain. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that pain is associated negatively to an extent. Like, it's pain, it's hurtful. But if you actually go there and visit it, like, you can actually use pain and these negative emotions as fuel to the fire. And that can often, catapult people into change. Often, you see this, somebody goes through a breakup or something really extreme happens, like you lose a parent to heart disease, and then you realize, like, that's possibly my trajectory. And as much as they are like really negative emotions, you can actually take them and use them as fuel into action. And I think it's great for getting stuff going, but it's definitely not like a long-term strategy for living a healthy life, is what I would say. So they can be great drivers and emotions to use in the beginning, but over time really starting to switch that. And you'll see that anyway, like, right, okay, in the beginning, I just don't want to have a heart attack like my mum. It's like, okay, so you drive, lose weight, train, exercise, get in a really fit and healthy place. But then you realize actually being in a really fit and healthy place gives you more energy, makes you show up better, maybe you've pushed yourself further in your career. There's a million different things that you've done. And now they're all like really positive drivers. So you can actually dive more into the why of, well, I want to be continually motivated by the positive things that are happening now. But in the beginning, the thing that got you off the ground was the painful emotions.
Yeah. And what I would say for this, if you know there's something there pushing you to change, but you keep starting and then stopping at change, and you, like every new year you set the same goal, or like every couple of months you try again, but you always kind of fall off the wagon, maybe this is something that you need to dig a bit deeper and like really, really let yourself feel, what would life be like if this carries on? Because it's a very human thing to self-protect, of like, there's this big elephant in the room, but you just kind of ignore it. And you're like skirting around it, and you actually need to go and visit that and live with it. So that can help you get more ready for change and actually get that fire in your belly to go, no, do you know what? Enough's enough. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
The next thing that causes people to change is when they are inspired to, which again can sound quite fluffy, but if all you've got the evidence of is you keep trying, you keep failing, your mum's always tried, she's always failed, your best friend's always tried, she's always failed. Like, actually, do you think you're going to be successful if that's all you tell yourself? So what you need to do is surround yourself with proof that it can be done.
Yeah.
And it can be on social media, it can be talking to people that you know in real life, it can be listening to podcasts like this, but actually looking at what daily motivation and inspiration do you need to just remind yourself, no, this is possible this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
The next one is when you learn enough that you know, I want to do this, I need to do this. And so you might have, again, in the back of your mind, like there's a reason why I need to lose weight. The doctor's told me, but it's still quite vague. The doctor's just told you if you lose weight, you'll be healthier.
Yeah.
Maybe you actually need to do a bit more research as to what the ins and outs of that means.
And not bury your head in the sand, which is easy to do. But I think this is where social media, I think for all the negatives of it, you know, that it has definitely helped a lot more people be aware. And I think raising that awareness for a lot of people helps them get more curious. And I'm like, oh, so there's a reason I feel like this, and how I feel maybe isn't normal. And I can have more energy, or this trajectory I am on is a really dangerous one. So having that awareness then really does allow you to get more curious, and then the curiosity can invoke action.
Yeah, and it also helps make taking the actions make more logical sense. And I think this is a really key thing that we do with our clients is we're not just going to tell you to eat more fiber. We're going to educate you on why and what that's going to do for you. Because if you're a rational, intelligent woman, when you understand, oh, it's going to make me feel more full, it's going to make my bowel movements more regular, it's going to make my gut health better, there's a whole bunch of reasons to do it. Whereas if you're just told, just eat more fiber.
Yeah, it's... And I think that's like the thing that we've always had like positive reinforcement from our audience or followers or our clients, is the fact that we've just been like really logical in the sense of like, hey, this is why you should take this action. Here's like the evidence to say why, and here's like 7 other benefits you'll get from eating more fiber or having more protein in your diet. And then that gives people like a long list of reasons of like, okay, I should eat more fiber, I should eat more protein, getting quality sleep is important to me, or will be important to me because it'll give me all these benefits. And then people go and practically do it themselves and then feel those benefits and understand why they're feeling those benefits and can go, hey, this action equals these benefits and I feel great. I'm going to keep that action. You know, it creates the positive feedback loop. When you just go, oh, I'm eating more fiber, and maybe you do have all those benefits, but you don't even really know what it's the fiber that's doing that. The fiber then just goes and you just feel worse and you're like, why do I feel worse today? So it's really important, and that's like, we will continue to be components of that, of just being rational and logical and educational around the things that we're saying, because like people are smart. Like most people listen to this are smart. You're invested in your health. You want to keep making smarter decisions towards your health. Yeah.
And so if you're finding yourself starting and stopping or resistant to taking some of the actions, my advice would be, whatever you're resisting, go and like do some homework on it. Almost treat it like a school project where you've got to go and explain to somebody why that action is important and how it will help you and how it will work. Because I guarantee if this is something that you want and you go and do that research and you find a reason that really clicks with you, that will make the world of difference to you actually doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the final one is when you've got enough X that you're able to change. So we talk about, with clients, we talk about like ready, willing, and able to change. And the able bit is really important, because you might have these great ideas of what you want to achieve and you've got this great plan, but maybe you don't actually have the time, the resources, the support to make you actually able to achieve that. And so I think this is something that often gets brushed under the carpet, because people are like, oh, if you want it enough, you would just do it. That's not realistic for a lot of people, especially a lot of our clients, like that are busy mums with limited time.
So my I always struggle. Well, not don't struggle, but I'm always like very mindful about how I communicate this, because what we don't want to do is enable people to have excuses, because there's already 1,000 reasons why you cannot start and you're too busy and you haven't got enough time and everything else and the world's against you. There's already 1,000 reasons of that. But also, like, we're empathetic, compassionate people and understand that, like, yeah, life's fucking hard at times. And, you know, you sometimes there are seasons of things being super, super, super busy. Just a great way to approach it, though, is that I do believe, like, there is never a right time to start. It's just, like, when you do start, managing your expectations. So if you believe starting in your mind is 3 workouts a week, 10,000 steps, eating hybrid, you know, like whatever it is that you deem it is, you're like, well, no, I am not ready, willing, and able to do this right now. But if you go, hey, maybe it's just 1,000 steps more, so 10 minutes more walking a day that I'm currently doing, that I can probably just factor into like little things around my house. And when I go and get my lunch from the shops at work, I'm going to promise myself to always make a healthier choice. That's it. That's starting for you now for the first month. That can feel like a step forward, but not unachievable.
And so that's making yourself able to achieve the next goal because you've adjusted the goal, which is a really great way to tackle that, like, I'm not able to do it. The other thing you can look at as well is what would you need to make you able to achieve the things you want to achieve? So would it be asking for help? Would it be changing your shifts at work so that you could, like I have, a bit of an overlap where I can pick my son up or I can drop him off and I can do my workout and then my husband does the pickup, for example. So it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all answer to this question, but it is like, am I able? If I don't feel able, what needs to change to make me feel able? And it can be the goal or it can be the support network that you have.
Yeah, and I think this is where coaching can be really helpful, you know, in a sense of sometimes it does just take an outsider looking in and being able to just go through everything with you and be like, hey, well, actually, there's a few opportunities here where we could get stuff done. There's opportunities here. We could swap this out. Like, hey, if you just did that for the next month, like, you're going to be in a much better place. And then you actually realize, like, there's less noise, you're making progress, you're a month in them, and you're like, actually, I've got a bit of space to do a little bit more. And when you speak to your coach, you do a little bit more, and then month 2 happens, and now you're a little bit further ahead again, and you've done a little bit more. But it didn't feel like more. It felt like enough that you could handle. And then, you know, you really start to see that compounding effect. So, yeah, that's just my big part of that. Like, it's, don't get me wrong, I've had clients who's like, they've had a family member that's like terminally ill and they're working like 60 hours a week and they've got like 3 kids to look after. And it's like, yeah, this just isn't the time. Like, this is just absolute chaos. But things do balance back out and a bit of order comes back into your life and you can start to take actions. And even in those extreme situations, you still can look for the opportunities to take action.
And I've actually had clients in very similar situations, and after things have settled a bit, they've been like, I'm so glad that I had you there to keep me like on some kind of straight and narrow for my own sanity. We like ditched the weight loss goal for a period of time maybe, but we just focus on like, get your sleep, eat enough to function properly, like look after yourself, because without that structure, it would have all gone out the window and that person would have fallen apart. Yeah. So, yeah, there is never a right time, but there is always, regardless of how bad the time is, there is always something that could make it a little bit easier or better or less miserable. Not to say, oh, well, these are reasons why I can't change. They're to dig deeper and be like, right, what do I need to sort out then so that I can change and so that I am ready? And then just to kind of wrap this all up, when is a good time to start, which you've mentioned a couple of times. It doesn't need to be January the 1st. It doesn't need to be a Monday. You just need to start.
You do.
Hopefully today's episode has really inspired you to set some incredible goals for the year ahead and know how you're actually going to achieve them. So don't forget, we've also put together a free PDF goal setting guide for you to really make them bulletproof goals. Just go to the description of the episode and you'll see a link there where you can download it for free.